Where's Nicaragua?
In Central America.
I don't know where it's located geographically.
South America.
It's over there next to Buenos Aires, over there in the South Caribbean.
Oh, wow, it's Central America.
What's going on in Nicaragua?
I have no idea.
I'm not sure.
They're having massive internal problems.
A revolution, I guess.
There is a counter-revolution being financed by the U.S.
If we do nothing, if we continue to provide too little help, our choice will be a communist Central America.
We call upon all Americans to make a realistic appraisal of the failure of this president's policy in Central America and continue to call for an end to U.S. military involvement in Central America.
CIA! Nicaragua! CIA! Nicaragua! CIA!
American citizens protecting the Sandinistas from the Contras angers me very much. Their real deal is they hate the United States, they hate freedom. They will not be satisfied until all of Latin America is communist controlled.
Thousands who fought with the Sandinistas have taken up arms against them and are now called the Contras. They are freedom fighters.
The Contras are freedom fighters in terms of Ronald Reagan, but let's look at who they really are. They're the officers of Somoza's hated National Guard. Their fruits are summary execution, murder, rape, the assassination of children. I have seen them on the borders, and that is the way they behave.
Do you know if the United States is involved in the war?
They probably started it.
In a sense that they're trying to help.
I'm not really sure what our involvement is. I know we are involved, and it's of serious concern.
Nicaragua. Following 4 invasions by the United States and 26 years of recurring marine occupation, the Somoza family, with the support of the United States, took power in 1934 and ruled for the next 45 years. In 1979, Somoza was overthrown in a popular uprising, and the Sandinista government was established. Since that time, United States foreign policy has been aimed at removing the Sandinistas from power. Tactics have included training counter-revolutionary forces and financing a covert war. A movement to oppose that policy has been steadily growing within the United States. As a part of that movement, Americans have been witnessing firsthand the impact of U.S. foreign policy by traveling to Nicaragua.
If this was a border war between Honduras and Nicaragua and the United States had no involvement, I doubt that I'd be going. The reason that I am standing where I am standing is because those are arms and weapons and bullets and people who are hired and trained and paid for with my money and by my government and in my name. It is my resources that are being used, and I can judge in that situation, and I can stand there.
Some of us have to stand up to what our government's doing, and that we have to become as concerned for the whole world as we are for those areas that we find to be of value to us politically. So I'm looking forward to a real experience. And
most Americans go to Nicaragua as part of a group. Church people, professionals, labor leaders, students, and human rights activists are all frequent visitors to Nicaragua. This group from Denver, Colorado, is part of a broad-based national religious organization called Witness for Peace. They will be joining many others when they reach Nicaragua.
And all of you know that you'll be taking one suitcase of medical supplies. So if you're concerned about matching luggage, this is where it ends, because there'll be no matching luggage.
Most of these people have never met before. These next 2 days of intensive training are an important period for dealing with fears and expectations.
Fear of conflict.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you really are going into an area of conflict.
I had a lot of fears of death, but not of a physical death so much.
You're real suspicious of these do-gooders who are here. You come up and you're going to ask a question, start like something like, don't you think you're being, duped by the Marxist government? You'd love to show that they're not really politically independent as they claim to be. You, line B, you're a member of the Witness for Peace team, and you've just stepped off the plane at the airport.
Don't you think you're being duped by I'd like to welcome you to Moscow on the Pacific.
These people come. They're broke. They don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's what I'm here to witness. To find out if they do know what they're talking about.
Jim Warren, a pastor at the Church of Christ in Denver and father of 6 children, will soon be leaving for Nicaragua. Because his trip will take him to the war zone, he and his family need to talk about their feelings surrounding his decision.
Can you say Nicaragua?
Say Nicaragua.
Where is it?
Hi, Nicaragua.
Everybody I talk to tells me, I wouldn't go down there without a, 30-30 and, and they say that they wouldn't go down there without guns and stuff, and that's kind of scary.
I never thought it'd be my dad who would go and help. I didn't. But I guess if it means so much to him, I guess he has to do it.
Yeah, and then we stay in Mexico City overnight, and then we take off on Tuesday to Nicaragua, to Managua. I've never been to Mexico. I've never been out of Colorado, practically. Between Minnesota and Colorado, I've been no place.
We have a lot of expectations, but we're real open to what we can learn, what we can see. It's going to be good.
We're at the airport. We're ready.
And all of a sudden, you're here with the suitcase in hand, and it's real. It's no longer something you're planning to do. It's no longer something that is going to happen. It's happening now. We are on our way.
The Denver group arrives in Managua, so do 200 other Americans from across the country.
My husband and I are here because we're here on behalf of a lot of people from Virginia. We've been with a group of people that have been studying about the concerns of Central America for several years now, and we're the only 2 that could come, but I think we would want to say that we're here on behalf of a lot of people.
I've been in the peace movement for more than 50 years and glad to be doing something concrete and definite in the hope that it may contribute to world peace.
A continual stream of U.S. citizens are touring and working throughout Nicaragua daily.
I came down here both to take a look at what the Nicaraguans are doing in healthcare,
and to help prepare the way for other North Americans. Well, I came down here to do some work with the Reconstruction.
I came down here to work as a nurse for a year. I came down to translate for a peace conference.
I'm down here with a group of medical students. I'm here as a city planner.
Teaching English at the National University.
As a part of a delegation of veterans who were on active duty during the Vietnam War.
Welcoming ceremonies are an important part of the Americans' arrival in Nicaragua. This one takes place at a major student rally in Managua. In their first few days in Managua, American visitors spend a lot of time fact-finding and learning. They explore some of the issues that have made Nicaragua so controversial back in the United States.
They say that there are Cuban military people, Soviet military people, who are here in Nicaragua. Could you please address that question?
It is true. We do have military advisors here from the Soviet Union, and they will go home on the day that the United States, not the Contras, but the United States ceases its war against Nicaragua.
This group of American journalists is meeting with Roberto Cardinal, the assistant to the editor of La Prensa. La Prensa is the leading anti-Sandinista newspaper and receives part of its funding from the United States government. It has been at the center of the debate over press censorship.
But didn't you say that in the context of censorship, that the government in a condition of war, in some sense, has the obligation to censor overstatements or provocations?
Let us say this concerning your question, that there is not any law.
What we did was put together a research seminar on political communication in Nicaragua. We're spending 10 days in Nicaragua to study the role of the mass media in political and social communication in the country.
They did not abolish the newspapers as they did in Cuba and in Russia and all the Eastern world, but they let us exist, but under a very, very heavy censorship.
I don't think any journalist in this country feels comfortable with the existence of censorship. But I understand it within the circumstances. I understand it within the context that we are not living a normal situation. We are under a state of war.
For us, it's important to see how communication is used for other purposes. In our country, it's used for entertainment and for information dissemination. In this country, communication media are used for mobilization, propaganda, agitation, very different social and political purposes.
Another concern for Americans is the charge of religious repression they've read about back home. Archbishop Obando y Bravo of the Roman Catholic hierarchy leads the debate over religious freedom. His charges are leveled against the Sandinista government and the new church, which embraces liberation theology.
I'm the chaplain at Austin College, which is near Dallas, Texas. It's a Presbyterian school. And a number of us, Christian leaders, are here this week in Nicaragua to stand in solidarity with the Nicaraguan people, and particularly the church leaders here, both Protestant and Catholic, and to be here and find out what is really going on in this country. And this is really a people's church, and this is the church for the poor people of Nicaragua. It's not the wealthy church, and not supported by the wealthy people.
There's obviously a theological tension. There's the old church that was aligned with the Somoza regime. The people that were in positions of power at that time are feeling the change and feeling the loss.
They don't know that about Nicaragua. That here the church is persecuted 24 hours a day. That here the youth persecute the church. That here the adults persecute the church.
They are attacking the priests, the clergy, and everything that is Christian is being attacked in Nicaragua. And when the priests are being attacked, we feel wounded and attacked in our own flesh.
The conflict between the Roman Catholic hierarchy and the Sandinista government is ongoing, but many Americans are concerned that the issue of religious freedom is exploited in the U.S. media.
When there are major events, major demonstrations of thousands and thousands of workers or students in support of some Sandinista decree or another, the major media doesn't come. When 100 civilian Catholics and 23 priests march down a major street in Managua for 1 kilometer in support of a priest charged with counter-revolutionary activities, there were at least 50 journalists that I counted with cameras. All of the major networks in the United States were there. The media fell over themselves to photograph and to report that this demonstration took place.
American visitors often seek out a wide range of dissidents to find out what kinds of complaints they have and what solutions they seek. Comments from citizens like these help to round out visitors' understanding of the Nicaraguan situation.
No Nicaraguan really knows what liberty is. In the U.S., there is liberty. President Reagan can walk by and people can throw eggs and tomatoes at him and nothing will happen to you. And you can question the authorities and nothing will happen to you. But if you threaten him with a weapon, then they will get you. And that is liberty. Here, liberty doesn't exist. No one knows about it here. Right now, I will probably go to jail for saying this.
El nicaragüense tiene miedo, temor.
A Nicaraguan is afraid to express himself in the street, in the buses, anywhere. One is afraid to speak freely or say any unguarded word. We have to always say that we're in paradise. The revolution is perfect. Everything that is said has to be in favor of the present government.
They tell us they can't help us because we have to help our brothers who are in combat on the border. They have to spend money on that, and so they can't help us. The food is rationed, what little there is. We have many children, and we don't have enough to give them to eat.
We feel that the Sandinistas put our country and our people in a situation where we are part of the East-West confrontation. And I, as a Nicaraguan, as a father of family, and as a member of this society that I love, I don't want to be part of this struggle.
If the Sandinistas don't change course, this would be a communist country. What they call mixed economy is a cosmetic political word. The fact is that year by year, the proportion of the private sector have been diminishing in the economy.
A core of people in this country have enormous amounts of freedom, a lot of wealth from the businesses which they own, and a great deal of access to the public and to each other. They have access to radio stations which they own. La Prensa, the opposition paper, is there. In most socialist countries, that has not been permitted after a revolution. Here, it's open and potentially could be a source for undermining the Sandinistas.
Many Americans have discovered that Nicaragua is a country in need of tremendous amounts of foreign help. These people are distributing humanitarian supplies that have been gathered from across the United States.
We decided to launch a major campaign across the United States which accomplished two things. One, some 300 communities around the country joined the campaign and collected supplies and money. And secondly, it gave us an opportunity to reach communities that had not otherwise heard much about the problems in Central America.
This whole area is a portion of the medical supplies. Most of what's here are operating room tables, burn supplies, some ventilators, and a lot of medication. One of the greatest shortages basically is in medication.
We raised over $200,000 and about $750,000, or 3 times as much worth of supplies. Most Americans don't really know what's going on in Central America. On the other hand, an awful lot of Americans really don't want war and don't want the United States involved in war. So this is really the attempt to get a massive concern and movement started in the United States. in favor of Nicaragua's development process.
I'm down here with a group of architects and planners and lawyers and educators and contractors. Some of us knew each other before, but we're not in any organized way. We're just a group of individuals that came together to come down here.
We are very concerned about not coming here as revolutionary tourists, and what we want to do is render concrete assistance.
Major building and improvement projects are being undertaken by U.S. citizens in Nicaragua. These architects and planners are preparing the way for a major building project which will house Nicaraguans being relocated by the war.
Our hope is to arrange subsequent trips like this and eventually build a network of architects, planners, and related professionals in solidarity with Nicaragua.
Those that are going to live in these houses are people from Managua. The people that now live in debris will have homes. They say that within 1 year they will be building many houses. All that open space, they say, will be filled with homes for the poor and those from destroyed houses so they can move over here.
We've had lots of different people come and help us on this project. Some aren't even builders, but are students and health workers. They're here too, doing whatever they can.
Today we were putting down blocks for the foundation of a house. So they were showing us how to sift the sand to mix with the concrete for the mortar for the blocks.
I know that a lot of groups that come down and do this kind of work, they're not skilled workers like myself. And so I don't really know how much we're offering in terms of rebuilding areas. However, in terms of participating with these people, we're just lending a hand.
People have always volunteered their help. And the reason they're here? Why, it's because what they feel for us. And they are here prepared to help us because they want to.
The thing that impresses me the most is that you have here a government which has the will. I believe it has very strong popular support to put into effect the kind of social programs that it needs. What it lacks is the resources. It's quite moving for us, for me, for the rest of the group to see that.
Way so many Americans are coming down here now is fantastic. I wish everyone could come. To come down here and really see what the reality is makes all the difference in the world.
They have nothing to hide here, and they really make a distinction between American people like us and our government, and they want us to see the truth.
I have been received just wonderfully. I feel much more at home walking the streets of Managua at night without streetlights than I do Los Angeles, even in the better areas of Los Angeles.
There are Nicaraguans who now know that there are many people in the United States of America who do not wish them any harm at all. That there are people in the United States who want to see another kind of relationship altogether with them and their country and their revolution.
After several days exploring the city of Managua, the Witness for Peace group from Denver is departing for the town of Ocotal, near the border of Honduras. Here they will assist in reconstruction work and establish a peaceful American presence in the war zone. Ocotal suffered a major attack by 500 to 600 Contras in an early morning raid. The energy facility and other major industries were destroyed. Although there was a military base in the town, all of the targets were economic and civilian. 14 townspeople were killed and 34 were injured.
We were attacked by more than 250 mercenaries here at the National Energy Facility and the coffee plant. I was hit. Afterwards, I don't remember who took me out or how I got out.
When they came to the radio station, they opened the door. And they shot our friend from the CDS, Julio Tercero. And after that, they shot our friend from the youth group, Juan Carlos Mendoza.
Then they shot up the car, took some gasoline, and set fire to the radio station.
Well, here they ruined everything with some kind of bomb. I don't know what kind. I don't know those kinds of things. But as you can see, it's a real barbarous act. It's a granary. Here we keep corn, beans, and wheat. Everything for us to eat. And now it's all burned up. It's a big loss.
In Nicaragua, under President Reagan and the CIA director whom they call Wild Bill Casey, they are in fact giving the Contras written instructions in violence and destabilization. The target is the people. The social and economic infrastructure is what you're hitting at.
This was the work of the Contras. They burned the bus because it was carrying medical personnel. The Contras don't want medical personnel to come into the interior to care for us. They want to destroy any aid coming to us and leave us completely without medical care.
From what I've been able to find out, the central core of the Contras are 5,000 ex-Somoza National Guardsmen and some members of the conservative peasantry who have been politicized or who are engañado and who have been taken across the border, and a certain number of Hondurans who get a lot of money. They are paying many of the Contras 150 cordobas a day.
Now that we have more volunteers, we can send them to certain locations where they will be trained and equipped, allowing some of us to go to the front to fight. And now I believe we will be able to give them a good fight in the next few months. Look, a lot of us who fight so that no one can force us to servitude. We fight and struggle because in the Bible it says we should struggle to be free.
I had always heard that there may be a military intervention. I don't think I completely understood that until I went down there. And then I found that the intervention had in fact been going on for years, that not only are we supporting the Contras with money and with weapons that kill people, but also that these weapons destroy the economic livelihood of that country.
They've killed 7,000 people in Nicaragua in the years they've been doing this. It's not a bloodbath. It's like you go into a village and you kill a few people to make your point. The purpose is to disseminate terror, traumatize the people. We're not killing Sandinistas in the capital.
We're not blowing up their homes and terrorizing them. We're hitting at the people throughout the interior of the country.
They didn't ask any questions. They didn't ask us to stop. Just like savages, they attacked us because we were only 3 men and 7 women, all family. No one. No one was armed. We couldn't defend ourselves at all. They abused our helplessness, those people. The ones from the Reagan administration.
The Denver delegation is arriving in Ocotal just 2 weeks after the Contra attack. This is the Ocotal Daycare Center. It was on a target list found on one of the dead Contras, but was somehow spared in the attack. The Denver people are helping to build a bomb shelter behind the Center for the Children.
We're digging it because, as you can hear to the north of us, it's the bombs that our tax money is paying for that threaten these children. And we, if anybody, should be here digging trenches.
The United States has violated all laws, international laws, by contributing arms to the Contras, refusing to accept the World Court even beforehand. They forgot the ideals of our country, the beginning of our country. That all people have a right to revolution, all people have a right to self-determination. It's in our Constitution, and we somehow forgot those ideals.
We are doing this to help those kids and so that my planes won't kill them.
Visiting Americans stay with Nicaraguan families, sharing personal experiences and learning from one another. Mick and David from Denver stay with a family whose mother is in charge of Ocotal's local civil defense unit.
So now I'm saying that what people back home really want to know is them as human beings, and that perhaps we can ask a question such as, what has a revolution meant to them? How have their personal lives changed?
Now there's a great opportunity. In the past, we could not study because the only ones who did were the rich. And now I was given a scholarship so I could finish my technical training.
5 or more years ago, I would not have come close to a television set. That is before the revolution.
What's happening now in Nicaragua is unprecedented in history. The United States has been involved in wars against other governments before, but never have so many citizens gone to the country under attack and often put their lives on the line to try to stop the government from doing that.
It also has the very, very real effect of making it difficult for the Contras to have their way with the entire northern part of the country. If they go in and blast away in a village where there's 20 U.S. witness volunteers and kill United States citizens, the outcry up here will suddenly become very, very serious.
Don't worry about me. Oh, there we go. Save room for Snyder.
Another group from Witness for Peace is on its way towards the Honduran border to visit the small resettlement village of Escambray. Like the Denver group, they will stay with Nicaraguan families and learn firsthand what life is like in Nicaragua today.
Let's keep quiet, children, to recognize the arrival of the brothers and compañeros in solidarity for peace.
We'll work side by side.
Escambray is a small town
about 2 kilometers, just a little over half a mile from the border of Honduras. It's composed of 227 people, 125 of whom are children. And there are a series of concrete houses that have been built recently in order to protect the people who had lived in the outlying districts by living collectively together. They have a cooperative farm. They have a small group of people who serve as an elected council that rules them. They all seem to have a sense of participation in the way in which their life is conducted. I'm sure it's not nirvana. It's certainly real poverty. But I'm deeply humbled by the sense that they have of what's possible.
We, the farm workers, had to leave our land. Before, we had no homes and only a small piece of land to sleep on. But today, we have received land, homes, tools, and through the help of the movement for solidarity, we're finding the peace that the people of Nicaragua want.
This one-room house serves as Escambré's medical clinic. The doctor travels from village to village and stops here once a week. These 2 Americans found him here during their visit.
Dos por día por 3 días seguidos, ¿no? 8 de la mañana y 8 de la noche. 3 days.
Well, I'm a nurse, and I've felt in reading about Nicaragua in preparation for this trip that I wanted to learn about health care. The new government has made tremendous strides. Infant mortality to the age of 5 was 25%. That means a quarter of all babies born didn't live to be 5. This is just horrendous, and it's dropped dramatically because of the immunizations and this process of, which is very well organized, it seems, of taking medical care out to the villages, which didn't have any before. The doctor was from Ecuador. He was a young man who is here on a 1-year assignment, but he's only been here 3 months, and he said he just loved it more every day.
This is a special event of marriage, and David and Elaine have chosen to make you their community in marriage. You are a community that knows how to create life in the midst of death. David, do you take this woman, Elaine, to be your wife?
David, tome esta mujer para ser su esposa.
I do.
Sí.
Elaine, do you take this man to be your husband?
I do.
Amen. David and Elaine, I now pronounce you man and wife for husband and wife.
We've been waiting a long time, about getting married, and this just seemed to be the perfect place and the perfect time to include a community like that in the ceremony. I just couldn't have dreamed of anything more perfect.
La unión del matrimonio, amén. ¡Viva Cristo Rey!
This is a marriage of 2 Jewish people in a Roman Catholic town by a Protestant clergyman.
The Witness for Peace people asked me to show them the countryside. So we went and we looked at 2 different types of cooperatives. First, a cooperative in very poor land up in the mountainous areas. The government has poured in some pretty heavy investments in the area for pineapple and pitaya. And then we came to this farm, where we are right now, and this is a different farm. This is much richer land. And they saw what a type of farm is where peasants didn't have any land at all, And they were given this land through the reform process. Actually, they took the land over and then later received the title for it. This is a cooperative. You might just want to dive in and ask a few questions about it.
How much did they make before the cooperative?
Antes que fueran miembros de la cooperativa, antes de Triunfo, ¿cuánto ganaban ustedes al día?
Sí, ganábamos 7 córdobas.
Before, we made 7 cordovas a day. That would come to about 70 cents. Now they make 50 cordovas a day. We worked as if we were oxen before. What Somoza was doing with his price policy was stopping the development of independent farm families, and we backed that for 50 years in the name of democracy, in the name of free enterprise. This is not a communist society, as Reagan says it is. 80% of the industry is owned by private entrepreneurs. 75% of agriculture is owned by private entrepreneurs. What this is a revolution of small family farmers. This is a mixed economy.
From what I've seen of the cooperatives I've visited, the peasants seem to be very happy with their new arrangements. They seem to initiate the cooperatives themselves and have a great deal of input into the type of production, the type of credit they get. And they seem to be having a fairly successful life.
What happens is the war just breaks in on everything here. And in one place, between the time we set up their visit and they came, someone was killed in the community.
And Lord, we ask forgiveness for our part in the death of our brother. By the cooperation of our government and the arms makers and the taxpayers, we ask forgiveness for this sin.
I've lived here 4.5 years, and I'm so tired of the tension and the war. I don't know if the American people could realize how tired the Nicaraguan people are of 156 years of war and pressure.
In Jalapa, a small town which has been a strategic target of Contra activity, is this house of heroes and martyrs. The photos and the belongings inside are preserved by the mothers of those who have been killed in the war.
Here we have this heart, which has great significance for us. It contains the names of all of our heroes and martyrs of Jalapa. The heart was made on the anniversary of Alejandro Ramos, my son. Here we have this little dress belonging to Sujapa Gutierrez, who was killed in Quillote Cacinte by the counter-revolution when they were attacking with mortars from Honduras. Here we see her little dress. Here we have this banner, which was a gift from a North American group who came in support of Nicaragua. José Ramón Ramos, killed by the Contra. They pulled out his fingernails, poked out his eyes, and cut out his tongue, and cut off his skin and pulled it up over his face. And all of this you see here is the pain and suffering we, the Nicaraguan mothers, live through.
We went to the Center for Mothers and Martyrs, and there was a picture on the wall of a 14-year-old youth who in the United States would be studying and playing. And here, this young man went out to the fields to pick coffee. He was captured. He was tortured because he was questioned about other people in his community, he would not say anything, and he was killed. There is something very, very wrong. And I'm very concerned about that. I mean, I have a 16-year-old son.
After living and working with Nicaraguans in the war zones, many Americans demonstrate their concerns by participating in marches and rallies before returning to the United States Embassy in Managua. There they join other Americans in weekly demonstrations protesting U.S. foreign policy.
I'm here to be part of the demonstration in front of the American Embassy. Not that they're listening to us, but it's to rally our spirit, to show that we are united.
We are protesting the United States government's foreign policy here in Nicaragua. And most of us who work here are seeing the brutal results day in and day out.
It's a weird experience to stand in front of your embassy and watch your flag. I've gone through this a few times before, but it really hit me just a few minutes ago. To stand there and watch the flag, and at the same time to see the barbed wire down on the end, and hear what's going on, and the contrasts are really difficult to take.
My name is Harry Bergold. I am the new American ambassador to Nicaragua for those of you whom I haven't met. It's a great pleasure for my wife and me to be with you this afternoon in this first of what I hope will be many 4th of July picnics.
The following is a July 4th message that is to be radio broadcast towards American GIs that are currently on maneuvers in Honduras and other parts of Central America. I am speaking to you today for the members of the Veterans Against Intervention in Central America delegation currently here in Nicaragua. We know what it is like to be thousands of miles from home in a hot and humid, unfamiliar terrain in a foreign country, when you would rather be back home in Toledo or Denver or Norfolk or Birmingham or Pittsburgh or East Los Angeles, taking part in a 4th of July picnic instead of being in Central America, taking part in a military intervention that 70% of the people back home are opposed to.
That's my flag up there too, and I get so mad at some people telling me what that flag should mean, when it does not mean that we should intervene, it does not mean we should pay killers, it does not mean that we should run the world. It means freedom, and that freedom should be for not just me and Denver, Colorado, but for the whole world. And it makes me furious, because I get all teary when I see my flag and I sing the national anthem and God Bless America. That, you call it hokey if you want, but I go to parades on Memorial Day. But I want them to allow that for other countries as well as our own.
Don't give it up or history will bog you. Time has come for you to stop invading Nicaragua. Everybody! Henry Kissinger stopped by and spent a couple hours reporting we must save this place from foreign superpowers. Don't give it up or history will bog you. Time has come for you to stop invading Nicaragua.
I think we're all going to be pretty dedicated to try and reach the American people and explain all the terrible things we're doing. It's America's war down here, and we have to stop it.
Well, I didn't feel like the mission was to come here and promote peace. I felt like the mission was to come here to find out how to go back and promote peace.
The one thing that will be true of all of us here is that Nicaragua can no longer be just a part of Central America. It's definitely a part of us.
We opened our eyes here, and I think now the real work is what we do when we go home to change the policies of our government.
I have always been committed to making changes in the United States, and I'm more determined. I'm very clear that my struggle is not here in Nicaragua, and I'll be back in the United States as soon as I leave Nicaragua, as we say locally in my neighborhood, on the case.
Over 100,000 Americans have visited Nicaragua since the Sandinistas came to power in 1979. For many, the hardest part of their journey begins when they return home. Here they are challenged to apply what they have seen and experienced to the organizing efforts.
The only reason that the United States has not already attacked Nicaragua through the Contras and through other forces, through the CIA, is because so many Americans have been down here on peace missions. They've gone back and spread the word as to what's really going on down here.
We don't mind if they go down there. Some of them have the best of intentions. Some of them are ideologically different. They've got the idea that they're going to, you know, help the poor and that kind of stuff. Others are revolutionaries going down there to help foment revolution.
A few misleading and superficial tours. They come back to the United States as instant experts. They see what they want to see, as anyone would see in a totalitarian society which they're visiting.
But now, when our back is almost against the wall, against world communism, we have nothing but defeatism. We have people who decry patriotism, who put down defense, and they argue over a few $1 million.
That's the problem with the media. They tend to confuse things. Right. The key is education. People in this country have not been informed of the truth.
The Sandinista communists are lobbying your senators and representatives. Together with the misguided sympathizers in this country, they've been running a sophisticated disinformation campaign of lies and distortion.
The president may be trying to recapture what he calls the moral high ground on this issue. There's no way he compares to these simple, average U.S. citizens that go down there to try and discover what's really going on in Nicaragua and then try to convey that in all of its complexity to other average human beings, citizens in the United States, in normal communities across this country.
I'm not sure whether this kind of activity actually promotes peace. I think that peace between countries is dependent much more on government policy than on a handful of people visiting a country.
Civilians in Central America, and I will not sit by and not do anything about it.
Nicaragua.
Well, I think probably prolonged turmoil.
Continued tension. More war. The way it's going, I think it can only get worse.
I think it depends a lot on how many people get involved and, like me, learning more about it.
Well, I think if we were doing what we should be, we would have invaded them by now. All talk and no action means people are dying when they don't have to.
If we have to stop communism by killing communists, when we're threatened, I say yes.
The United States is now at war in Central America. I think this war will expand. As it expands, all of Central America will become involved. Now, we'll either stop that war or there won't be any future. This interventionary war will lead to a nuclear war.
If there is American action here, many American young people will die. Many. These people are committed to preserve what they have won hard through a revolution, as we did in 1776. They're not going to give it up readily. We will be the invaders. We will be the aggressors. We will be the oppressors. And Americans better weigh this very carefully.
And my concern is that the Central American issue will become another Vietnam. And listening to these mothers here who have lost their sons, mothers all over the world cry when they lose their sons.
It's not so bad if they kill a bunch of Nicaraguans, just as it wasn't so bad when they killed a bunch of Vietnamese. But when North Americans started dying in Vietnam, then the citizenry of North America finally demanded that that war stop.
We have the means to make our government stop if we use it, if we take that responsibility. It's a long, hard haul, but I think we could do it.
Yes, I think we'll stop the war. I think when consciousness is raised and people get together, all you need is a critical mass, and we don't know what a critical mass is. It may be very small. So yes, I say that we can.
In a historic vote on June 25, 1986, the United States House of Representatives passed legislation providing $100 million in aid to the Contras. On June 26th, the Sandinista government responded by closing La Prensa indefinitely. On June 27th, the United Nations World Court found the United States guilty on 15 counts of violating international law and Nicaraguan sovereignty.